Welcome back to the Dormer Politics Podcast. My name is Justin Fisher.
I'm Nolan Flaherty.
And I'm Austin Veritine.
There's been quite the busy week in news. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, so let's dive right into it. So, before we start talking about Brett Kavanaugh and the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings, let's first hear a clip featuring Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction.
Now let me take a wild guess here. You're Brett, right?
Correct.
I thought so.
I got into Yale Law School.
Check out the big brain on Brett.
That's the #1 law school in the country.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
I had no connections there. I got there by busting my tail.
Looks like me and Vincent caught you boys at breakfast. Sorry about that. Did you have it?
Beer. I still like beer.
You mind if I have some of your tasty beverage to wash this down?
Sometimes I had too many beers, but I did not drink beer to the point of blacking out, and I never sexually assaulted anyone.
Yes, you did! Yes, you did, Brett!
He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
So obviously what we learned from this clip and a lot of the Brett Kavanaugh hearing in general is that Brett Kavanaugh does in fact like beer.
He does quite enjoy beer.
He drinks it for breakfast?
I guess so. And he drank it in high school. I don't know. Are we supposed to be nominating a Supreme Court nominee that was drinking before the age of 21?
All I know is that is actually a crime in the state of Illinois.
That's 100% correct. That's 100% correct. As we know, you have to be 21 in the state of Illinois for drinking alcohol.
As college students, we very well know this, and we abide by the rules.
Absolutely.
We haven't even seen a single drip of it.
No, Jesus Christ, no.
Nothing.
But anyway, so this sort of whole story, this controversy has taken two sides, where a lot of people are siding with either Brett Kavanaugh or this Dr. Ford. Who is obviously his accuser in this
There's two more accusers that came out.
Two more accusers that have come out within the case. And it's been a big controversy, obviously, and people have taken sides and tried to take a moral high ground in the whole situation. So I guess we want to hear, what do you guys think about all this?
Listen, you're either for beer or against beer.
Amen.
That's what it comes down to here.
I don't know why Lindsey Graham is talking about, morals and ethics. It really comes down, are you a fan of Natty Light or are you not? That's really what it is.
That's pretty much it. No, I think that I think that based on my experience here so far, the more alcohol I've seen people drink, the more touchy they get. I don't know. It's just a thing. I don't know. It's men and women both get touchy around each other.
I think it's unfair just because somebody got. I think it's unfair to just say just because somebody got drunk in high school implies that they sexually assaulted someone. Now. But for the record, like if anybody is accused of sexual assault, then you have to have some sort of trial. Of course, the statute of limitations is passed now because it was 36 years ago with the Brett Kavanaugh case. But with the Supreme Court nominee, I think there should still be hearings in the Senate Judiciary to figure out if it happened. And with Dr. Ford's testimony, there was no corroborating evidence. There was no corroborating witnesses. I think it's fair to say that Judge Brett Kavanaugh did not sexually assault her 36 years ago.
I don't think that's fair to say. I think it's word against word. And I think you're making the implication based off very little evidence, which is what the Senate Judiciary Committee has to rely on. So, I mean, it's kind of a hard situation in that the committee has to make sort of this implication, take a side against whether it's Kavanaugh just because it's been this esteemed judge. And I don't know, the argument among Republicans was like, oh, Kavanaugh has treated these other women so great. That's kind of like saying I'm not racist because I have black friends. Like the implication of like that sort of argument.
There is a fair argument there. If the man was sexually assaulting 3 women in his time at Yale and his time at high school, and then for the rest of his life there were no other accusations, usually somebody that has a history of sexual assault continues that well into adulthood.
Definitely, but I don't know what the proper way to handle this is. I'm going to be honest. I think that the process itself of appointing a Supreme Court judge is sort of stupid. We look at what happened to Merrick Garland in, what was it, 2016? Early 2016?
That,
yeah, so he was appointed by President Obama, and the Republicans were able to delay him the entire duration of Obama's term because just because he was a Democrat, he was never given a
He wasn't necessarily a Democrat.
Yeah, well, just because he was appointed by a Democrat.
Yeah, because
he's a pretty moderate judge, actually, and I think a stand-up guy. But I think it sort of shows the flaws within our process of appointing a Supreme Court judge in general, in that even if this wasn't, even if Brett Kavanaugh didn't sexually assault this woman, which I think he did, which...
but on what evidence?
On what grounds? Okay, here's my point of view. If you're Brett Kavanaugh, you want to vehemently be sure and let the American public know that you did not commit this crime. Why don't you open up and let the FBI do an investigation? Why don't you tell the president, look, clear me of everything. I didn't do anything at all.
He wasn't a federal employee at the time.
Okay,
it was a state crime.
I understand the jurisdiction.
jurisdiction.
I understand it's not under the FBI's jurisdiction. He wasn't an employee at the time. But if he has the opportunity, and I know the FBI doesn't make, they don't solve the crime necessarily. They might give you
they file a report.
Yeah, they file a report and they give you a little bit more information. But if I'm Brett Kavanaugh, if I'm someone about to be in a position of power and I want to be respected by my peers, by my fellow judges, by the American people, I allow an FBI investigation to happen. I try to clear myself as much as possible from any involvement in this, and I try to make my name in the highest standing. And that's why his refusal to sort of do this, I don't know if it was just because of he wanted to support the Republican Party, who didn't want him to be delayed anymore, if that's why he didn't allow the investigation to happen. But if I'm Brett Kavanaugh and I want to be a morally strong person and say that I didn't sexually assault these women, why don't I let this investigation happen?
Because he's a human being. Okay, so first of all, after these testimonies, you're right, it's word against word. But if you have an accusation from Dr. Ford, and her testimony has zero corroborating evidence, zero corroborating witnesses to uphold her claim of an accusation. Hold on.
No.
To uphold her claim of an accusation, there was nothing. Her testimony carried no weight. So, according to American ideals, her accusation is false, right?
We also still haven't heard
innocent.
from Mark Judge yet, who is supposedly, he's like the key witness here.
According to Mark Judge, it didn't happen either.
Well, he might have information that is important to this. Look, I think that there's a couple things to take out of it. Yes, it's word for word, but I think when you analyze the behavior of Kavanaugh and Ford, I think you could see like a real difference in attitude. Kavanaugh looked like he had a few brewskis before he went in there. Like he was a little red nosed, little buzzed a little bit.
No, he was not.
He was a little antagonistic. I'm sorry, he acted like a petulant child.
Are you kidding me?
No,
imagine
I'm just saying. I don't want that kind of behavior. I don't want that kind of guy.
Okay, wait. Don't even consider him.
I don't want that kind of guy
at
the Supreme Court. Listen,
consider him as a human being. Okay, agree with me that for a moment.
No. But I'm saying that if I think that a Supreme Court justice should have a little more composure than he actually showed.
Yeah, he was snapping back.
Listen, I'm not going to.
I would be snapping back at that as well.
But we're not Supreme Court justices that are on the. We're not nominated.
It doesn't
for
matter.
That
He's a human being. If you're falsely accused of sexual assault,
the position matters.
Get rid of the Supreme Court nomination. The dude has to confront his daughter about what's happening.
He was just way too emotional about it.
Are you kidding me? How could you be emotional? How could you not be emotional in this situation?
To me, he lacked composure. I thought he looked ruffled out there.
Give the man some human nature. Jesus Christ. If you're falsely accused of sexual assault, that would be an incredibly emotional
how do we know that he's falsely accused? You're making implications. Him backing himself up has the same amount of merit as Dr. Ford with no corroborating witnesses, I agree.
No, it does not have the same merit as Dr. Ford.
Yes, it does.
He does not have to prove himself innocent. Dr. Ford has to prove Brett Kavanaugh guilty. He could say nothing. And if Dr. Blasey Ford did not get enough evidence to convict him of guilt, he would be an innocent man.
So why can't... I guess you're making the implication that if we... I don't know.
I'm assuming innocence.
That is... We can assume innocence about anyone.
That's what you're supposed to do.
If a rape occurs and it's just one person... Normally a rape or a sexual assault is just two people in a room. How are you supposed to have a witness to that?
You don't. You go to a hospital. You get a rape kit. You get DNA test. Most rape trials are used by DNA testing.
Look,
not
but
witnesses.
this wasn't even rape. This was just like an attempt at rape.
Okay, so if you have an attempt at rape and you don't have any evidence,
the way that our culture is, the way that this sort of the way that these things are handled, or women are scared to come up and sort of
be
able to come out and
it's not even necessarily our culture. If you're sexually assaulted, it's usually by somebody who's in a position of power above you, and you're afraid to come out. I don't necessarily think that's a problem with our culture specifically. I think that's just something that happens realistically. But I think you have to assume Brett Kavanaugh's innocence in the trial. You cannot immediately believe an accusation that's placed against him without any corroborating evidence. And it's unfair to think that Brett Kavanaugh is guilty of this crime in a testimony where his held more weight.
Listen, I think that even if the allegations are true or false, I think that going into it there were serious questions about Kavanaugh, and I think they were shown throughout the hearings. And I think that the most important sort of question, at least for me, was Kavanaugh's role in the George W. Bush administration in around 2006 regarding torture, and whether he knew about the policy of enhanced interrogation, quote unquote, which is really just torture and waterboarding. Mm-hmm. I think that those are serious allegations, and the Republicans blocked any information regarding that. There were records on file about it. Republicans blocked it, right? And in 2006, he did get questioned on it when he got nominated for the Court of Appeals, and they were not convincing answers. So I think just based on that alone, the Democrats actually have, I think, a pretty strong sort of opposition toward it, and this is just adding on top of it. That makes
I think that's fair.
It makes him disqualified.
I think that's a fair question.
It makes him disqualified.
I don't necessarily think it makes him disqualified, but I think it's something that should be brought up fairly in the hearing. But the idea, Dianne Feinstein and the Democrats knew about Christine Blasey Ford and knew about her testimony and her accusation before they made it public. They held on to that information to be able to oppose Brett Kavanaugh publicly. And that's disgusting.
Demonization of both parties in general is just disgusting. I mean, I mentioned what happened to Merrick Garland. It's the Democrats are trying to do the same thing, and that they're trying to stop Brett Kavanaugh. But I mean, it helps when he's been accused of sexual assault. So
the Republicans didn't hold onto accusations of sexual assault against Merrick Garland and then publicly publicize.
Well, how are you holding on an accusation? If there's an accusation of sexual assault, you're going to let it be publicized about this guy. You're not just going to cover it up.
Yeah, but why would they hold that until they were able to publicly share it? If it was a case of sexual assault, who cares about Supreme Court nominees? Who cares about politics? You have somebody who is accused of sexual assault, and according to the Democrats, according to anyone, that should be brought up immediately. It shouldn't have anything to do with politics.
Well, again, it shouldn't, but in this scenario, which I don't necessarily agree with either, but it provided a public stage for it to happen. And
I think it was disgusting.
After it was 36 years ago anyway. I think they just wanted to be able to put it out at the right time. So, which I don't know. It's kind of obviously it's disgusting to not be able to. You're right in that it should have been published right away, but I don't know. They just sort of had a better platform this week, especially, and they had a better ability to delay him.
I think it's unfair to say that Brett Kavanaugh was too emotional in the hearing. I think it's definitely unfair to say that. Get rid of the fact that he's just Supreme Court nomination.
He was very riled up. He was quite disrespectful to the Democratic senators.
I'd be pissed.
No, just to question. He was just. I mean, I think the most striking answer that he had was actually he answered in a question. He answered to Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, talking about blacking out. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he shot a question back at Amy, saying, "What, did you ever black out?" Like it was petty. It was childish.
Kind of disrespectful as well because her dad was an alcoholic. She
like beer.
Yeah,
exactly. Like he just sounded like a Yale frat boy.
He did.
I don't know. I think it's a little unfair to say. Assume that he was falsely accused. Assume that the allegations are false for a second. Wouldn't you be emotional in the fact that this one false accusation could possibly not only ruin any future in your legal career, but could also ruin the relationship you have with your family? Like he was getting emotional and worked up when he had to discuss the conversation with his 10-year-old daughter. Like, could you imagine that?
Another thing that bothered me about Kavanaugh, I don't know if it's just with lawyers or something like that, but everything is about themselves. Everything. My reputation is ruined. That line was said so many times by him and the Republican senators. Like, no one gives a fuck about your reputation, Brett. Okay?
I give a fuck whether or not you sexually assaulted someone.
Exactly. Honestly. That's what the American people care about.
I think it's fair to be frustrated that your reputation a reputation that he grinded for.
It's just his ego just gets in the way
he
of
went to
everything.
Georgetown, right? This man did 4 years at Georgetown, 3 years at Yale Law School.
Yeah, and he couldn't keep his hands off women the whole time.
How do you know that?
Couldn't keep his hands off beer and women. I'm sorry.
Off beer, you're right. He liked beer. But the idea that he had his hands on women the entire time that he was at Yale and at Georgetown is just ridiculous. And before these hearings, I didn't know if Dr. Ford was lying or not, right?
Personally, the lesson from this for me is that I think it's very draining to continue to keep up with just the constant news cycle that's been for the last couple of years.
It's unending.
It's draining.
It's
just
so
to keep up, just to keep talking
constant.
about it. But it's a part of our civic duty in order to do this. You know, we must not be numb to outrage, right? I mean, because that's what it is, right? It's outrage, and outrage has gotten a negative connotation because of political correctness on college campuses, and people are outraged over, I think, kind of micro shit, right? But I think when we look at the bigger picture, like, the only way for us to keep going as a society, as a democratic society, is to keep that outrage level high. Because if we don't, then we start to get our rights taken away.
But I do think the news cycle is moving like ridiculously fast. Like, we even heard about Hurricane Florence in like a week.
Yeah, it seems like
that shit dumped like
honestly
3 feet of rain on fucking North Carolina.
There are people dead in that area, and it's just been all Kavanaugh, pretty much. I don't know, just when you get there's certain news cycles that spark people's attention more than others, and they start to drown out other things. People literally drowning in Hurricane Florence. Drown out, not to make a bad pun there.
No
but,
pun intended.
No, not at all, but it's sort of the sad reality of where our country's going. We process information so fast these days. I mean, if you had ever taken an honors course in high school, they just hit you with information after information. You're not really learning for your own benefit. It's more you're trying to process as much information as possible and see what you can do with that. And at the end of the day, when it comes to overall learning, you really have to explore for yourself. You have to get your own ideals. And I think that's what we try to do here a lot of times with this podcast, and that's why I love doing it with you boys.
I feel like at school, like, I'm doing the bare minimum a lot. I know it's a lot on me to go and do more, but I just feel like it's draining because there's so much fucking information, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like whenever you go on like a fucking database, right? I just feel overwhelmed. Like it's really hard for me to learn anything. I don't know. Scary times.
Are you guys excited for these 2020 Democratic presidential nominees?
Hell yeah.
Michael Avenatti coming in hot.
Dude, Michael Avenatti, like, he is such a sleazy porn lawyer.
What a scumbag.
I'm sorry. He's just like, it's disgusting.
The Democrats, I think, are looking at maybe Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker.
You're looking at Michael Avenatti and Kamala Harris,
which is pretty sad. And I think Trump's going to headline the Republicans, obviously.
Literally,
do you think there are any Republicans that might challenge Trump? I don't.
I think if they do, it doesn't even matter. Like, I mean, Trump's base is the Republican base. People want to argue that there's this group of never Trump Republicans. All those people are fucking old neoconservatives who just don't like that Trump had some negative rhetoric on free trade and wars, even though he's been following up on that same rhetoric. It's not like he's been doing anything outside the norm of the Republican Party.
Look, this is how I see it pretty much. There's two base of people in our country. So when you go to when you listen to a presidential debate, you have those who are maybe listening for the Democrats, those who are listening for the Republicans, and those who don't know shit about anything. And there's a lot of people that don't know shit. So you'll have the basic Democrats, basic Republicans agreeing with the traditional Republicans, traditional Democrats, and their views. And they're going to vote for them no matter what.
But
and
they're lapdogs.
they're
all they are.
Oh,
they
yeah.
just
Establishment
clap for anything that you could fucking say, the sky is blue. They'll fucking clap at that. Like, oh, that's so fucking fantastic that he's on our side. It's just they're lapdogs. They're not actually able to think for themselves.
Sure,
and I think that, like, there's a stigma around independents that they're always in the middle. When in reality, I think there's a lot of independents that are kind of further to the left, further to the right, and there's a lot that have like this populist sentiment that I think Trump really got into the last election.
Being an independent myself, sort of like a moderate person, I think that there's a broad range of independents. There's people that say, "Oh, I'm a moderate," because they don't know shit about either side, and there's people that are informed, which I like to think that myself I'm informed, and that I can't really identify the direction of either party. I don't know what the values are. I feel like each party is full of a lot of people that just sort of agree with the agenda of the party, and they just get reelected, and they vote on it no matter what. And then, going back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, but I think what we don't realize about our population is that there are so many just stupid people. And that they're going to take trigger words.
That's bold.
They're going to take whatever Trump...
No, that's such a fucking elitist
No, it is
opinion.
not.
No, that is.
That's a little bit of an elitist
No, that's,
opinion.
It is not
no, that's
elitist.
like people that are dumb, like they should not be able to have their say.
It is not... No. I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to have their say. This is what I'm saying. Is that when you simplify things, like Trump did in 2016, just the example of the economy in general. So if the question posed is something like, why does the top 1% hold so much power in our country? Hillary Clinton might have answered it like, oh, well, the economy is a complex issue where there's interactions between other countries and we try to create trade, or I don't know, stuff like that. She'll go into a complex analysis because Hillary Clinton knows a lot about foreign policy, and she was a Secretary of State, and she's going to be able to provide an opinion, a nerdy opinion, because and appeal to those people who actually know what they're talking about in terms of economic policy. Donald Trump is going to say, China's bad. We're going to bring the jobs back to America. And who's going to appeal to that? People that don't know jack shit. When they hear something that's like, oh, we don't know anything about what's going on. More jobs sounds better. We're going to vote for Trump. That's what happened in 2016. And I'm not being an elitist by saying that people are stupid.
It's a little. I
think stupid people deserve their own opinion, but they should inform themselves.
I'm really sweating from this fiery hot take that you're spewing out of your mouth right now.
It's like 100 degrees in here.
It is fucking hot.
Well, give me something to prove that.
No, I just think
I think it's a little elitist to say that people are stupid just because they don't care about politics.
I just think you're like flat out wrong. Basically,
no. All right. Well, tell me,
Nolan. I think you're totally off base here. There are reasons why people feel alienated and they don't feel like the government speaks for them, and they think, why should I vote? There's no purpose for me to vote because the whole thing is rigged. And they're not too far off base, right? They have legitimate concerns for their country, right? But they have this existential dread about our democratic process, which is increasingly becoming undemocratic.
Well, I can see that point of view for sure, and that I am a person that I will vote no matter what, but I don't necessarily know that it's going to impact anything. I think I could vote a certain way, and it won't represent my views necessarily, but I still feel like I have to vote as a duty to my country.
Like, dude, we were just talking about like 10 minutes ago how it is exhausting to keep up with the news cycle, right? You're talking about people... why would someone who's working 2 jobs, right? That's exhausting for them to just keep up with that process, right? They're just trying to fucking make ends meet right now, right?
Well,
that's not even on their list of concerns.
Listen. Like, okay, so when I got down here, I applied for a couple political campaigns. I was very shocked to realize that campaigns have been the exact same for a century. Okay, so I'm literally knocking on doors and making phone calls. All right, so I've talked to probably 1,000 people now in the district. Right, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the election. Nobody cares about Congress. Nobody cares. Very little people care about Illinois state representatives.
I think many people wait until like a week during the election
to figure out who they're going to vote for.
Exactly. Like it's like a playoff baseball. Okay, you could have an empty stadium, right, for the whole damn year, right?
Comes the analogies.
But a team makes the playoffs, right? In any sport, right?
Loyola makes Final Four.
Boom, they make the Final Four, right?
Everyone's going nuts about Loyola.
Everyone's a rambler, right? And it's like they go down to the Final Four, you know? It's like that. It's kind of that rallying point where it's like, all right, this is the time where, like, now I'm going to show up,
bro,
right?
I'm telling you.
Because if you're...
Mitch Trubisky, bro, everyone in Chicago, everyone in all of Illinois that were, St. Louis fans... All Bears fans.
All right, well, let's not like
all Bears fans.
That was a world-class performance from Mitchell Trubisky yesterday.
Absolutely incredible.
Let's give him credit. Let's not call him Mitch. All right, he doesn't want to be called Mitch. He's already said this.
He's a Mitchell.
He wants to be called Mitchell because you know what? He's a grown man now.
He's
not a little boy. He's not Mitch now.
Mitch rhymes with bitch too, so he doesn't want to be
Mitchell Trubisky, and he's dropping dimes on Soldier Field. That field is rich. Covered in dimes yesterday.
There's thousands of dollars in dimes down there. It's reflective. You can't even see. There's all the dimes on the ground.
He's a system player at best.
Oh, come on. Give it a break. That dude, Tampa Bay was bullied.
Listen, Soldier Field was rocking. That thing looked like a spaceship yesterday that had, people excited to go to Mars. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was lit. I wish I was there. Like, that was the most satisfying Bears game I've ever watched in my life. Most satisfying.
It was a good game. Okay,
Really
I know it's been entirely commented on way too much, but Soldier Field, disgusting. It's so gross.
Look up pictures. Like, it looks like...
You had a beautiful field, and it literally looks like Independence Day. They just dropped a spaceship on top of it.
Pretty much.
Like, what are you doing? It's ridiculous.
It's disgraceful.
All right, anyway, what other non-political news we got? Oh my gosh, Elon Musk, no longer Tesla chairman. Tesla stock skyrocketing.
Up 15% today.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah, I would watch a TV show if Elon Musk hosted it.
I
watched the Joe Rogan podcast with him where he lit up a joint and started talking, and it was, to be honest, very entertaining.
Bro, he was like one of the most respected people in the world because of Tesla
and SpaceX as well.
And SpaceX.
Drugs have
He's going to send someone
and
to the
now he just like I think he gained a little weight. He fell off the face of the earth.
All because of one tweet, really, where he mentioned that he was going to take Tesla private, and
now he's no longer chairman, and he had to pay the SEC $20 million.
Which is chump change for him, though. So
that's wild. That's wild.
I have a hot take here. All right, let me spew my flames.
I'm a little cold. Help me out.
All right, I think that win or lose, if Beto O'Rourke runs for president in 2020. He could win the Democratic nomination, and then he could go on and win the presidency.
The dude is a good politician.
I think he's got momentum right now, and either win or lose, he's now got that name recognition, right? Barack Obama had a similar sort of trajectory, right? He was a senator, right? Gave a speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention.
Beautiful speech,
right? It's still heralded.
Gorgeous.
Still heralded as one of his finest speeches, right? And he's had a ton of fine speeches, right? So Beto O'Rourke, I feel, is having a very similar sort of trajectory, and I think he's using social media really well. There's been a few viral videos regarding him with the national anthem, with police brutality, and none of the things he is saying are controversial. He's using logic. He's using reason. He's using compassion.
Well, I can't say nothing is wrong. There's a lot of things that are wrong.
And it's a shame that most likely Ted Cruz is going to win because nobody likes Ted Cruz. I'm sorry.
I like Ted Cruz.
Why do you like Ted Cruz?
Because he's a strong constitutionalist.
He's a slime ball.
I like Ted Cruz.
He's a slime ball.
I want Ted Cruz to win. But commenting on O'Rourke's, he's a great politician. Okay, and Ted Cruz. Honestly, on social media, there's a lot of things that he's doing. It's just stupid. There was this speech, all right? It was in a black church in Texas. Beto O'Rourke had a podium, went in front of the podium, directly to the people, okay? That's like a John F. Kennedy move, all right?
It's BDE,
gorgeous.
Baby. BDE. Big dick energy.
Okay, calm down. Anyway, and then he starts talking about, there's something wrong with the fact that when a black man is in his own apartment and he gets shot, the only thing that the police are able to report on is the fact that he had marijuana in his apartment.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. He's 100% correct. And Ted Cruz, slandered him on Twitter for it. What are you doing, man? You're giving the guy momentum. I don't know.
I'm just shocked that when anybody hears Ted Cruz talk, they don't immediately laugh or just
fall asleep,
just shut out. Because he's honestly he is one of the worst politicians I've ever seen. Just in his rhetoric, he has dangerous rhetoric combined with a really irritable personality that makes you really want to hate the guy. Right? No one in Congress likes him. Okay, I bet you if you ask most Republicans, they would take Ted Cruz the policymaker, right? But they would not want to take Ted Cruz the person, right? You would not want to go to dinner with Ted Cruz, okay? You would just not.
Cory Booker did.
Well, that'll be an interesting race to keep an eye on for sure. Beto O'Rourke has been ahead in the polls at some points. I think as much as 3 points. One poll. Thank you, Mr. Republican. But yeah, I think Ted Cruz will probably end up winning that race. But it's definitely interesting to see the Democrats rising up a little bit in our country, and you might see them for sure put up more of a race in the Senate and the House when these midterms come along.
Wait. You guys see that? That's a blue wave coming.
Shut up.
It's coming.
Shut up.
It's headed right toward Washington, D.C.
2018 is going to be nothing but red tide.
I think
that... nothing but red tide.
How about a little mix of a blue wave and red tide? A little purple rain.
Hey, how about...
Oh!
Purple rain.
Does that mean Moses is a Democrat? He parted the Red Sea?
Oh, purple rain. Vote Libertarian, baby. Cash Jackson.
He won that gubernatorial debate. Anyway, you guys got to pay attention to the governor's race, all right? Pritzker's way ahead. He's going to destroy Bruce Rauner. Rest in peace. I despise J.B. Pritzker. But Cash Jackson, man. Okay. Enough roasting Cash Jackson. Dude is a veteran. He's a great guy. But anyway, hopefully we'll be able to mix in the futures, some little sports in there, some little non-politics news, maybe a little finance. But of course, we're going to be focusing on what's in CNN's and Fox News' headlines because it's exciting.
When it all comes down to it, it's all political.
It's just fun to make fun of CNN and Fox News.
Absolutely.
And MSNBC. I love how, every time Michael Avenatti gets on MSNBC, my mother's like, ooh, he's such a reliable source.
I'm telling you, some people are stupid in our country. Love you, Gina, though.
All right. Anyway,
love you, Gina.
We're going past our time. So we're going to be doing a podcast once every week or so.
Every Monday, hopefully.
Should be every Monday. It should be a regular schedule, hopefully. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Justin Fisher.
I'm Nolan Flaherty.
And I'm Austin Vertine. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and continue to listen, and head to dormroompolitics.com for more podcasts. Thank you.
We'll see you guys.